Hello class, here we are with our lecture on Chapter 7, Business Ethics Fundamentals. Let me say that again, Business Ethics Fundamentals. There, I got it right. Well, what does it mean? Let's start out with ethics. This is the discipline that examines good and bad practices within the context of moral duty and obligation. You know, we hear the word ethical, the ethic, work ethic, and so on. Well, anyway, ethics, good and or bad practices. Moral conduct. You know, we just saw above ethics, it talks about moral duty and obligation. What is moral conduct? Well, these are the principles of what's right, what's wrong in the way we behave. It deals with behavior, values that eventually are used to determine what kind of behaviors are okay, what isn't okay. Now we put it together at the very end with business ethics. And this is concerned with good and bad or right and wrong, you know, moral, immoral. And we'll see those terms in just a moment. In fact, that's why they haven't been listed here in the slide, because our chapter really goes into them, and we'll see that in a second. But business ethics deals with the good and bad with practices that take place in business. Now, where do we get ethical norms? From all over. Look at who influences the individual and the conscience that we have within the individual, that moral conscience. It comes from fellow workers, from family members, friends, the law, religious beliefs, society at large, our employer, the profession we belong to, maybe even regions of the country and your local community. Take a look at those. What may be ethical in one place or in one community or with one group of people, whether it's your family or friends or your religion, all of that has to do with the way that we value or believe or think. Now there's two kinds of ethics that we're going to be dealing with in this lecture or in this lesson. One is descriptive in ethics, and it involves describing, characterizing, and studying morality. We want to know what is it, what is going on. Now, normative is when we push, when we ask people to come towards a norm. A norm is sort of a mean. It's what the average of everybody. And that is the what ought to be or what not ought to be, or the what should be or what should not be. These are two different. What is versus what should be. I know that from the way that I do research, we take a look at the what is, but we try to stay away from the what should be. We look at what is. Now, let's take a look at our quadrants, our circles here in our Venn diagram. We have what's ethical responsibility, legal responsibility, and economic responsibility. They all intersect, the three of them, at one. And what our authors of the textbook are trying to say is that if it's profitable, hey, let's do it. If it's legal, hey, that's getting better. And wow, it's ethical, let's go for it. Now, let's look at 2A. That's in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And let me see it. Yeah, I've got the cursor around it, 2A there. Is it profitable and legal, but we don't know if it's ethical? We should proceed cautiously. Now take a look at 2B. 2B is that it's economic, that it makes money, and that it is ethical. But we're not sure if it's legal. It could be. Again, proceed cautiously. Area 3 says that it's legal and ethical, but not profitable. Of course, the organization sees that and says, okay, it's not against the law and it's ethical, but there's no money in it. Why do we want to do it? And it says here to find ways to seek profitability. Well, I can tell you that organizations, if they don't see money, they are not going there. But anyway, this is a good way to consider this. I mean, this is a good diagram to memorize. Now, if there's anything in this lecture today that you memorize, that you learn and can take away, and it's not just here on this slide, you need to also take a look at what's in your textbook. It's the difference between immoral, moral, and amoral management. And I know that you know, or I assume that you know the first two. The third one is probably new to you. Immoral. That's what we call somebody who's doing something wrong by our standards. Moral is when we say, yeah, that fits pretty good standards. That's what I would do. That's what we would do in our group. Now, sometimes, I can tell you this, that there may be people in other places that may look at us and say, whoa, those people in San Antonio are immoral. For example, let's say that you're coming from a society that expects women to cover their heads up, and they take a look at our women that don't cover their head, and they may say, that is immoral. But then we may look at something that they may do, and we may say, hey, they're doing something immoral. Now, I'm not saying that everything is relative. In other words, that there are not some basic things. We would probably say that following an agreement is a moral thing to do. If you have an agreement, follow through with it. There may be some people that may not feel that agreements are to be followed. Now, there may be another reason for it, and it may be amoral, which is, and there's two kinds of amorality. One is that it's intentional, where you don't consider ethical factors, you just do what you're going to do. When a dog goes after an animal to kill it, or let's say a lion does that, they don't have morality and immorality holding them back. They're just going after it, and they're not considering anything about the ethics. And it could be unintentional, it could be casual or careless about ethical factors where maybe today I'm not really paying attention to it, it's no big deal. Okay, so we have intentional and unintentional sources of amorality in management. Now here's another slide that I'd like for you to really digest and hold on to. This is Kolhlberg's levels of moral development. Let's take a look at level 1, where it's the pre-conventional level. The focus is on me. It is about selfishness. We have stage 1 where we react to punishment. No, please don't hurt me, or oh, that hurts, things like that. We stay away from negative things, from stimulus. And stage 2 is that we seek rewards. That's level 1, pre-conventional level. Then we work to the conventional level, where our focus is on others. With people, this starts happening if we're looking at individuals, developing a moral judgment. This here is where we are when we're probably starting in our 8-9-year-old and moving up into your teenage years, but this is really up to early teenage. You would talk about law and order morality, what's right, what's wrong, black and white. And you would talk about good boy, nice girl morality, and it's pretty concrete. It is, there are no shades of gray, and maybe that's a pun that I shouldn't be using as far as morality is concerned. But we're taking a look at very basic, this is right, that is wrong. Level 3 is post-conventional, autonomous, or principled level that has several ways of describing it. And it's looking at humankind. It's getting more abstract. It is not focused on just good and bad. Here we have universal ethical principle orientation, that what's good here may be good in other places. And we take a look at a social contract orientation of what is the role of the individual towards society. Anyway, your textbook describes it. Please go in and study this. Again, please. Now, let's take a look at why managers and why employees behave ethically. Most of us, we do it going back to Kolhlberg's. Do you remember Kolhlberg's model on the previous slide? One is we want to avoid punishment and or to receive some reward. Yeah, this sounds cool to me. Now, the second one is to be responsive to family, friends, or superiors. That means we're not really worried about, well, are they going to send me to the principal's office or something like that? Or am I going to get fired or am I going to get a raise for doing this? Actually, it's about responsiveness, and it's to be a good citizen. And then finally, very few of us, why do we do stuff? Is it to do what is right, to pursue some ideal where we are guided by values and principles rather than, I want to have a good time, let me have a beer, that kind of response, which would be a reward to myself. And that's at the very bottom level. By the way, where is the beer? Oh well. Moving along. This is probably maybe the last slide. Let's see what we have next. Here's the final one. And this reminds me very much of a slide at the beginning of this lecture. We take a look at the web of values. Where do managers get their values? Well, again, it could be from religion. It could be from some philosophy that we have. For our culture, we derive a lot of our values from the places where we live. It may come from legal documents. It may come from, some people take a look at the Constitution and they say that enshrines some of their values. And finally, professional values. Accountants very strong with values. It's something that they have to have a special ethics course, and it's very important for them. Well, and they aren't the only ones. Anyway, this is the last slide of this presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye.